Hi, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Books and Beaches. So I am almost positive this is going to be Bookmas, Vlogmas, and booked for the holidays, as I'm trying to coin it, day 2. And this is going to be my November wrap up. So all the different books that I read in the month of November. Now, it is going to be a very image heavy wrap up, because even though I didn't necessarily read all of these like via audio, or I should say listen, any physical copies that I do have are currently being loaned out. So please mind, or please don't, hopefully don't mind the images that I'll include here, but we have lots of books to talk about. And actually, I did not count before I started filming, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I did 11 books in the month of November, which is amazing. I think it is, if I'm remembering right, looking at my stats, it was the best month I've had all year long. And now some of that, or these were audio, which definitely helps. But I was just like in a reading mode. So let's jump in and get started. So the very first one was a book that I had off of NetGalley. And I actually want to say this might have been the first time I've read a book by this author, and that was How Bad Can Things Get by Darcy Coates. Now, I know I have one actually sitting right here, but I had, like I said, I had gotten this as an ARC, and I didn't really know what to expect. I think she verges a little bit more on like the horror side of things, but this one, we basically had a big group of people who were all on this like private secluded island for some type of contest, influencer type game, I guess you would call it. And so we focus specifically on this one girl and her experience going through it. Now I'm trying to think if it was multiple perspectives. Of course, now I can't remember. It was just so long ago, and there's nothing on here. Anyways, that's what happens when you use table. But it's the reason it definitely leans horror is it's very, very graphic. So these people are going through all these different sorts of games. They're trying to win money. It's a guy that he's known on YouTube for, giving away lots of money. Definitely like a made up person, but we all know of some of those creators. And so they're going through like, these climbing these towers and looking through like the creepy, woods and all these different things, like looking for all these different tasks that they're trying to complete. But people go missing. You hear things, you get the description of people's bodies like getting torn apart. It is quite graphic, quite violent. So that one, I didn't know exactly. I guess I gave it a 3.5. I mean, it wasn't bad. I mean, I enjoyed it, but maybe not knowing going in what to expect. I will pick up more by her. Like clearly I have one on my shelf, but yeah, that one, it was different for sure. After that, I picked up my first nonfiction of the month, and that was The Lethem Theory. And this is by Mel Robbins. Now, I had never listened to Mel Robbins' podcast before, but I remember Lindsay from Lindsay's Little Library talking about this book, and she just said, like, you need to read this. It definitely, like, hits home basically for a lot of people. And I think I talked about this in my November nonfiction recommendations. And it's a book that definitely I was able to relate to a lot. There was a lot of times where I was like, she's definitely talking about me here. And so this whole idea of the Lethem Theory, and I think I said this, it's a very simple theory. Like it's just letting people do what they're going to do. And you're not going to follow that always. Like there's clearly sometimes where you need to step in when it's safety or other things are concerning. But, if somebody's going to worry about what you're doing, let them, but don't let it, bug you. And so she kind of takes this theory and walks it through a bunch of different areas in your life that it could apply to. So it was really, really great listen. And I do tend to listen to nonfiction just because I like it. The one criticism I'll give, and Mel Robbins herself does read it, is that she doesn't directly read from the text. She summarizes in some areas or, elaborates in others. And so if you are trying to follow along, which I was trying to tandem read this one, it was a little difficult because if I would start to listen, walk away, do something, and then come back to it, it was a little bit harder to find where I was. But overall, I gave it a 4, really enjoyed it. And it's currently being loaned out to one of my coworkers. So there's that. in between reading that one and, you know, I didn't want to go like solid nonfiction all of November. I did The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. And this is obviously her more contemporary romance sort of writing. I have read Fourth Wing. I have read Iron Flame. Still got to read Onyx Storm. But I absolutely loved another book that I read by her, which is The Last Letter. I actually have 2 copies of it. One's up here, one's over there. That book, oh, killed me to my core. And I heard very similar things about this one. And so I had high expectations going in. Now, I should tell you what it's about. We're getting kind of a dual perspective type of thing. We have a woman who is going to be telling the story of whom she says is her grandmother. I think it actually is her great-grandmother. Because she's a writer. And they are trying to finish the book that she wrote but never published after she has passed. And so we are getting that and how she's working with this other author in order to, you know, get that written, as well as chapters that are based in World War II in England and the things that she's actually experiencing, because that's what this book is about. Now, there are definitely parts that pull at your heartstrings and, you know, you get that war aspect. So there's a lot of, you know, tension and things like that. I ended up giving this one a 4. It just did not give me that same emotional reaction that The Last Letter did. Now, had I read this one first, maybe it would have, but having such high expectations, this one just didn't meet that mark. It was still good. It was still a really great read. I loved, you know, a dual timeline and dual perspectives, but just missed, just if I compare it to the other ones that I read. So there's that. After that, I picked up another nonfiction, and both of the nonfictions that I previously already read were both from my book club this month, and we read The Anxious Generation. Now, I had kind of started it and skimmed it through over the summer because, as I mentioned in my nonfiction video, we use this book as the basis to go cell phone free, bell to bell, in our schools. And this book is very data heavy. And I should mention it's, written by Jonathan Haidt. And he puts so much data and so many facts and, I don't want to call it survey data, but so much documentation into this story. And so it can get a little bogged down in that, but it is so necessary to prove his point and the effects that technology and social media and all of those things have had on, you know, children currently, even those of us that like started to grow up with it. I'm, I guess what you call more of an elder millennial, but even the little bit that we've had, I mean, we all know we're probably more addicted to our devices than we want to admit. So I loved at the very end, it kind of listed all the different things that each group of people could do, you know, what parents can do, what our governments can do, what, you know, schools and teachers can do. So some great points in there, and just kind of looking at, you know, the amount of screen time and technology and social media and all of those things that we let influence our lives, and take that with a grain of salt. And, you know, I even did that this summer. I took a look at my number of phone pickups and tried to read more pages than that every day. Great experiment. I'll link that video below, but it really gets you to recognize how much time you're spending. So gave that one a 4.5. You know, it did get bogged down in the middle anyway, but it overall is a really important message. So after that, I picked up another book that I had off of NetGalley, and I was so excited for this one, and that was We Fell Apart by E. Lockhart. This is part of the, oh gosh, I just want to make sure I get it right, the We Were Liars and Family of Liars series. So I had read We Were Liars first, and then Family of Liars I read after that. That was the next one that came out, which is actually the prequel to the story, but if you hadn't read We Were Liars first, it would do some spoiling. And then this one, We Fell Apart, is part of the series, and it's connected, but it isn't necessarily one that you would necessarily need to have read first. I mean, and it's been a while since I read the first two, but there are connections made. There are, I guess, a few things that are spoiled-ish. I would just read them in order. That's my suggestion. But so this one takes a different like lane of the story. It's super confusing. The first one in We Were Liars, we basically have, you know, this family and this I don't want to call it a compound because that's not the right term, but this estate basically that they have on, I forget which island, it's one of the ones out on the East Coast, and just all of the wild and crazy and dramatic things that has happened to this family. And yeah, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of things that happen, and there's a really good twist in there too. So I don't want to say too much about We Fell Apart, only because I do think you should just read all of them in the order that they were published, but good YA stories for sure. I ended up giving this one a 3.75 because yes, Fable lets me give 3.75s because I enjoyed it. But I want to say like the first are better. They just shocked me a little bit more. So there's that. I then picked up another nonfiction. This one I definitely listened to because the author is the narrator, and that was Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry. Once again, I did talk about this one in my nonfiction video. This was a hard listen, and especially now knowing that he published that in 2022, and then knowing now in 2025 he is gone. But just listening to him talk about all of the things that he's gone through in his life were just, I can't even imagine. And like I said, I think I said this in my other video, but you could tell, you know, when you watched Friends that he was going through things, but I would have had no idea the amount of things that he was actually going through. And so listening to him be so raw and vulnerable about it was phenomenal. It was so good. So I gave that one a 4. You know, it's so hard to rate a memoir, and I feel like, am I ever going to rate a memoir of like a 5? Oh, maybe. There were parts that I was like, okay, like, you know, let's get her moving, but do you really want to say that about somebody's life? So always take some of my nonfictions with, you know, a grain of salt when it comes to that. After that, another one that I have is an arc on NetGalley, and I was very, very behind on picking it up, but I picked it up off of the recommendation of both Jen at the Bookish Blonde and Lindsay at Lindsay's the Library, because I think Lindsay finished it only a couple days before I did, and Jen had read it already, and that was The Quiet Librarian by Alan Eskins. Now, I have read a few Alan Eskins and really liked them. If you haven't read The Life We Bury, it's fantastic. And so this one, we are getting a dual timeline story about a woman, and of course, I'm terrible with names. I mean, if you've been around here for a while, you know these things. But, oh gosh, what was her name? Hannah. And I really actually suggest listening to this one because she is from Bosnia. And there are so many pieces of culture and names and things that when I was listening, you know, I'm getting the true pronunciation of those things. And I think that's the benefit of audiobooks. But so we're getting a dual timeline. She is in Minnesota working as a librarian. She finds out one of her really good friends has died, but in a very, very tragic, like pushed off a balcony, tragic way. And that's not spoiling anything. That's like in the very first chapter. And this book goes back and forth between her current timeline, trying to figure out what happened to her friend, because it's very suspicious. And there are police involved, but she thinks she can do it better, as well as her time growing up and surviving Bosnia. And I want to say when I heard Lindsay talk about this, you know, she said, once again, this is a timeline that we probably don't know a lot about. You know, similar to, there's been a couple books that I've read like that. And the process that it probably took somebody, you know, escaping a war-torn Bosnia and hearing these stories was very impactful. So I really liked this one. I liked the mystery involved too, because that current timeline is giving you the mystery. So it's like historical mystery, I guess maybe that would be the right term. Gave that one a 4.5. Really enjoyed it. Once again, a little slow in the middle here and there, but so it wasn't that like perfect 5 stars, but really enjoyable. After that, I picked up just a really quick, easy read because I was all in the Wicked mood. I've actually seen Wicked for Good twice now. I saw it with my coworkers and I saw it with my family. So I picked up The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. I don't think I have ever actually read the actual book, and it's L. Frank Baum that wrote it. And so I was like, I've never read the original story. My hope now is to also go and read Wicked, which I've heard is wildly different than both the movie and the stage show. But I wanted to start at the source, and I've seen the movie. The movie actually always creeped me out a little bit when I was younger, but reading the book was great because the book is even different than that movie. So now I just kind of have that solid basis to hopefully then, whether in December here or, you know, well into 2026, that I pick up Wicked. So pretty standard, you know, we have Dorothy and the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion, but they go through some different adventures than we're used to. So just a quick and easy one to pick up, you know. Was I super impressed? No. Did I expect to be? No. So I gave that a 3.25, and yeah, it was just because I was in the Wicked mood and I want to read all of them. So after that, I am on a Geneva Rose kick this year. I am trying to read her to zero. I am almost there. I want to say I only have 2 books left. So I picked up One of Us is Dead, obviously, by Geneva Rose. And in this one, we have these wild group of very wealthy women that you can't always tell if they like each other or not. And you're getting multiple different perspectives, which I love. You're getting kind of different perspectives from each woman. One of the women is actually the salon owner, where they all go and get like all of their pampering done. So hair, nails, you know, massage, you name it. And there is a lot of drama in this group of women. And mixed in, you're getting kind of this current timeline, knowing that somebody has died. And the story goes from there. You are trying to figure out which one of them is going to be dead. They all have motives to kill each other, and their husbands are messy. You know, there's one that was divorced and then her husband married someone new and she's part of it. It is just kind of one of those like Desperate Housewives, The Real Housewives murder mystery mix. So I enjoyed that one. I gave it a 3.5. Pretty standard. You know, I've enjoyed probably some of her more recent stuff more, but it's a pretty good start. I'm trying to think, when did she write this one? This one was from 2022. So I enjoyed it. I'm going to keep reading her to zero. So there's that. Then there was a book. Once again, I was working on my NetGalley goals. I will be updating you at some point here in December about all of that. But I was like, okay, I'm going to pick up another NetGalley one. Let's pick up Our Last Resort. And this is by Clemence Michelon. I know I'm saying that wrong. This author is French. I know I'm saying that wrong, but I had read their previous book, which reminded myself is The Quiet Tenant. I really, really enjoyed The Quiet Tenant. Multiple perspectives, kind of crazy, where I would say this Our Last Resort was just kind of meh. I hate to say it because there were parts about it I was interested in, but we have this brother-sister pair who we come to find out grew up on a compound of a cult. And so we are getting flashbacks basically between their current time at this resort that they're staying at, where they find out a woman has died, and times of, you know, growing up in this cult. And this really would have had me interested because I kind of like books about cults, whether they're fiction or nonfiction. And it just fell a little flat for me. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything. I definitely think you should pick it up and maybe try it. It could have just been me. It could have been the time I picked it up, what have you. But there were times I was just like, okay, what now? You know, and I guess I expected maybe the leaving the cult to be more dramatic or something. And not to say that there weren't things that happened that were, but it all just, yeah. And the current timeline where they were trying to figure out like who killed this woman just kind of fell flat a little bit for me too. So I gave that one a 3. I mean, I didn't dislike reading it. It was just kind of, okay, what's next? So, and then last but certainly not least, and of course my backpack is in the other room because I actually had this one, but that's all right. I read a book called Ugly Me, and this is by J.E. Stamper. I am part of basically what you would call a book club through work. We have to get extra professional development hours every year. And so I joined this book club because we read books. We also watch documentaries and films and things like that, that all relate back to some sort of topic that would deal either with our school, our students, supporting our students, etc. And so, you know, last month we started with this book, Ugly Me, which features a middle school girl who, it's all about her first day of 7th grade, this entire book. It's actually fairly short. It's under 100 pages. But it documents her experience on her first day of 7th grade. And she has it rough. And, you know, her mom is kind of basically a drug addict, and she couldn't wake her up at one point in the book. And, you know, we hear about this terrible first day that she's having. And you see it from the middle school perspective, which is kind of the whole point of why we read some of these. to realize, I had a coworker today, we just had our discussion about it, you know, middle schoolers are in a fishbowl. They are only thinking about their bubble around them. And so you tend to think, you know, you're constantly thinking about what other people think. And, you know, if you drop something, they're all looking at you and things like that, even though they may not be. And so this book just really helped us open our eyes and, you know, create some discussion around the fact that we may not know what's going on for someone somewhere. You know, these kids come to us for 8 hours a day, but we don't know what's happening the other 16 hours of the day. And so just helping us have conversations around that, thinking about what a kid might experience during the day. You know, we talked about how a kid might perceive something one way and we perceive it another. And so that's why I love this, you know, book club that we have, because it creates such fantastic, you know, discussions. Next month, we're actually watching 2 different films, and they tend to focus on like substance abuse to help us kind of understand, you know, students that might have a background with that. And so it's just a great way, you know, to create these discussions that are very important for the students that we support. So I gave that one a 4. I really liked it. It actually is a 4-book series. So it starts with this one, then they wrote a prequel, and then there's 2 following. So I'm looking forward to picking those ones up hopefully soon. But those are, as I kick my remote here, those are all of the books I read in the month of November. Like I said, it was a fantastic reading month. It was the best month I've had all year. So very, very excited about that. But let me know, what did you pick up in the month of November? Anything that I should add to my list? I would love to hear about them in the comments below. If you don't have a book or something that you want to tell me about, feel free, let's see, to leave. I'm trying to think. Let's do, it's so hard to decide. Let's do Witch's Hat, because I read The Wizard of Oz. We have The Wicked Witch of the West. I've been obsessed with Wicked. Let's go with that one. So feel free to leave that in an emoji below. I'm almost positive there's probably one. But anyways, hopefully I am staying on track with this whole, you know, booked for the holidays thing that I'm trying to do here. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. But as always, if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.